All right, so good morning, everybody. It's a delight to be here. And today I will be presenting in concert with my PhD student, Celia Yang, about an environmental listening project that we are developing at ASU. So the Acoustic Ecology Lab has existed at ASU for approximately 10 years. And this is a general map of the kind of work that we're doing with a number of projects there on the right-hand side and key elements associated with listening on the left-hand side. For the project that we're talking about today, we're coming back to focusing just on environmental listening and the way that that helps build community and engage us more with the land on which we live. Recently on Ezra Klein's New York Times podcast, he said, we are not going to legislate quickly enough to stop climate change. That cannot be the only path. So then what options are left? What options do we have if politics fails? And as a society, we've been too slow, too risk averse to move forward, too scared to upset others, to change the balance of power, the status quo, the very things that have actually led us to this place. So now we face a climate catastrophe. Over the last 5 years, we have been running an environmental sound monitoring system in the McDowell Sonoran Preserve, which is the largest preserve, urban fringe preserve in the Northern Hemisphere. And so we have actually several years of recordings. And from those recordings, we have sought to model psychoacoustic properties of the sound recordings to current weather that was occurring at the time of the recording, in order to see whether we could model psychoacoustic properties of the environment to changes in weather patterns. And of course, if we extrapolate that out, changes to the sound of the environment based on climate impact. We found, in fact, that there were extremely strong correlations to what we call acoustic diversity measure, which is the number of individual identifiable sonic streams in the recording, with dew point, wind speed, cloud cover, and temperature, and an inverse relationship, but still very strong with visibility and humidity. What this said to me was that it's very clear that sound environments are changing and will change dramatically with climate impact. So that means that it's possible that species will move habitat, not because there isn't enough food, but because they simply can't hear each other, they can't find food, they can't find prey. This, Zoom's kind of taken over. Okay. So this brings me to really thinking about ecology and acoustic ecology and thinking about ecological ways of listening. How do we hear this change? And in thinking about that, one of the things that I contemplate is the Buddhist notion of dependent arising, which tells us that essentially phenomena have no intrinsic existence, that they are dependent on a frame of arising. And the usual examples are things like a loaf of bread, and we can think about the soil and the microbes and the worms and the seed and the farmer and the harvest and the transport and the et cetera, that lead to us having a slice of bread on our table in the morning. Indeed, we could say then that the environment around us, and this is perhaps extending Schaeffer's original notions of our activity, our ability to form that soundscape, are creating the soundscape that we have. And indeed, inversely, by listening to it, we can tell how it's changing. So let's think of sound fundamentally then as ecosystemic. So in that context, we have started to build the community environmental listening groups. We're really interested in helping facilitate environmental listening as a way of addressing climate change. And listening is a really unique activity, which is really an existential act. It brings us to the here, to the now, and it's a unique way of being present, truly present in the place that we reside. There's actually very little in our daily activities, our daily lives, that allow us to achieve that. And I would argue that even meditation is often more about centering on the body than it is about the context, the environment around us. So environmental listening really attunes us to the environment that we inhabit. We're seeking to empower the community to facilitate environmental agency and stewardship through listening. We envisage a future where the broader community embrace their presence on the land on which they live and thus understand and foster a balanced ecosystem. Our mission then is to provide tools, training, and resources to build community-based environmental listeners in support of a sustainable planet. I love this sign that I saw in Athens some years ago, which was really about littering, but this idea that environmental protection relies on a citizen's culture comes back to this sense that we are all individually responsible for how we go forward. So we would argue that change must be led by each of us. To go back to Ezra Klein's quote, it can't just be led by institutions. What happens if they fail us as they are at the moment? But simultaneously, change must be on a global scale. So environmental listening assists us to be aware of our environment in which we live, to explore that environment through sound, to be more connected to that environment and expand our sensibilities towards it, to be more local, a part of the ecosystem itself, hearing species change with migration, with changes in weather patterns, etc. And fundamentally, to be grounded and present. Environmental listening is also free, can be practiced by anybody at any location. So we're really seeking to facilitate a wide community uptake of environmental listening to address climate impact, really at scale, like at a national and international scale. So this brings with it a bunch of challenges. We're trying to, and Celia will talk a little more about those in a moment. We're trying to address that through developing a guidebook, which is in process at the moment, and we've started running workshops. In those workshops, we have reduced the toolkit to 3 listening modes: active, passive, and directed listening. We're working to build those community groups currently. We're building a podcast. We hope to have a newsletter, and we're also in the process of developing a web portal, which would then be available for the community at large. These resources and the way in which we're approaching putting these resources into the community, we believe, will make a change. And we honestly believe that if we can change the way people listen, we can change the world and address climate impact. I'm now going to hand over to my PhD student, Celia Yang, to talk about how we are implementing that project. Celia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Celia. Can everyone hear me well? I'm a doctoral researcher working with Dr. Paine from the ASU Acoustic Ecology Lab. Thank you so much for joining us today on Zoom. I'm very delighted to be here and talk about communal listening for climate action. There are 3 key points I'll be discussing today. And to start off, I'll begin by sharing the strategy to reinforce communal power through working with the ASU library. So in order to build a project on a larger scale, and to encourage deeper community engagement, we developed a partnership with the ASU Library, which share the National Library Network to work with individuals and organizations. We have conducted the trainer listening workshop to encourage sonic awareness growth in local community by utilize environmental listening tool to build stronger connections with our ecosystem and to help propagate this project We developed the environmental listening guidebook to help the library pass the responsibility to train the lead up the development of community environmental listening groups to reinforce the communal power. And we aim to conceptualize and establish environmental listening experience to address the underrepresentation of sounds within education and to contribute to teaching and learning through embodied experience. So the ASU library has deployed the Acoustic Ecology VR that we provided for environmental listening experience on headsets in their collection. And we make those headsets available for checkout in these pristine nature environments within the library. They also promote this opportunity through various channels, including health and well-being. And we manage regular environmental listening session on the ASU campus, and also to manage and promote an ASU environmental listening groups, and propose regular workshop on training in listening modes that we mentioned before. There are 3 major listening modes that we introduced in the guidebook. We are supporting the listening groups through having a permanent ambisonic listening space. The library will make available areas where a number of loudspeakers can be set up to create an ambisonic listening space in which students may work in silence or simply hang out in beanbags to experience the health benefits of listening to nature in an immersive environment that we create for them. And this space will be curated by the environmental listening groups and could include submissions from community members. And although those facilities might not be available to everybody outside of the ASU community, we think about how to help the community to grow. The ASU library will assist us to promote this program through the library network to other libraries across the country. And we developed this simplified environmental listening guidebook as a toolkit to pass on the responsibility. In order to address climate change, we believe the way to do is to simplify the toolkit for the user so people have access to them for free. That's why we try to introduce and practice the 3 listening modes. It is a simplified toolkit that everyone can use to contribute to build public impact. So this environmental listening field guide that we are creating will be ready around over the summer. And I am going to talk about the future of climate change. So climate change will bring more complex responsibility for everyone, but therefore also new opportunities to bring our sensibilities and competences into regenerative systems, sustainability in the contribution to acoustic ecology. We are also working to create outreach and a discussion that can connect to other work in the acoustic ecology. And we want to bring a sonic rational competence to the current crisis of climate, health, and social impact. And I am going to also discuss the listening to possibilities to create and implement new transferable toolkits and skills for pedagogical practice. These listening modes and toolkits will provide responsive and embodied learning methods that aim to enable the learner to engage with their cultural, social, and political surroundings. Sounding and listening as a form of activism and interference can break through these partitions to hear possibilities and resistance to them, and to make propositions about how we could work together, how knowledge could be produced. And we hope to offer these opportunities for new thinking, cross-disciplinary collaborations, and another way to see the frames given to us by academic infrastructure and expectation. And we wish to reinforce these ideas of placemaking, stewardship, and agency that the general public and community can become more connected to the place that they are living in. And we feel the urge to look after our environment. And we also feel that we have the power to do something about it. And last but not least, we hope to hear from you. And if you like to take a lead and participate in this project and receive the updates in the summer, please contact us on the following email address. And I'm happy to take any questions right now.
Me too. Thank you, Celia.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Yeah. Do you want to come up? Perfect. Yeah.
Garth and Celia, thank you so much. This is Jonathan Beaver. I'm a philosopher at the University of Central Florida. I was really interested in your work, especially in a tension between maybe awareness building, which comes from the sound walking protocol, and you're thinking about the push to responsibility. There's a gap there, right, between recognizing an issue and acting on it. Maybe that's a gap between awareness and responsibility. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about how the process you see coming out of this project will get to this individual responsibility.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And first, when we first developed this environmental listening project, we decided to work with the ASU library network because we want to build this project on a larger scale. And through the library network, we're able to get to a larger community, and building on top of this and having library as a space to create a sonic experience and the sonic environment listening space for the community. You will have the opportunity to engage people around you. And also through the library network, it will be able to reach people on national level instead of just your local community. And also we have developed the guidebook as a toolkit. So even without us being present, the guidebook will serve as a reference to help people in conducting their listening experience. And we also conduct the trainer workshop in local community. So we train the trainer, and then the trainer can also train the next trainer, so that we pass on the responsibility, and then in that way we can grow the community in a larger scale.
Yeah, thank you, Celia. And I might add that's an excellent question, which is what is the catalyst that brings this exploration into action? And I personally feel that the first stage is to develop awareness. And I live in Phoenix in Arizona, where it's often ridiculously hot, and we leave an air-conditioned house and get in an air-conditioned car and go to an air-conditioned building and so on, right? And when I look at the daily life patterns that occur in this city, I don't see a lot of people taking time to engage with the environment. So I think that providing a toolkit that can be distributed in the community, and as Celia is saying, working with the libraries to distribute that through an existing community network, means that we can build a practice, and a practice will build awareness. And even if that awareness is just that a few times a week, people who engage actually take 5 or 10 minutes to stop and engage with their environment, I see that there's likely to be a change in perception of what's going on with climate impact, and hopefully then through that, an evolution in their personal contributions to that. Of course, that's a difficult thing to ensure, but we hope that that will happen.